The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They were old. They were powerful. They believed they knew everything about the universe and all the creatures living in it. 17 different alien species sat on the council, and together they controlled more than 1,000,000 worlds across the galaxy. High Arbiter Eth was the leader of the council this cycle. She belonged to the species, tall beings with blue skin and 6 eyes that could see in every direction at once. She had lived for over 800 years and had seen many things. She had watched civilizations rise from nothing and fall to dust. She had ordered the destruction of rebellious worlds and the submission of proud species. Nothing surprised her anymore. Or so she thought. She stood in the great council chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Mandate, the largest warship ever built by any species in known space. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of 3,000 council warships, all of them armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. It was the greatest fleet ever assembled in one place. And they were all pointing their weapons at 47 small ships that had appeared from nowhere. "Report," Eth said, her voice calm and cold. Admiral moved forward. He was a crystalline, a species made entirely of living crystal that pulsed with light when they spoke. He was the finest military mind in the council, and right now his crystal body was glowing with confusion. "High Arbiter, we detected these vessels emerging from uncharted space approximately 6 hours ago. They made no attempt to hide their approach. They flew directly toward our patrol fleet and then simply stopped." Species identification. "They call themselves humans, High Arbiter. They come from a small planet called Earth, located in a system we classified as worthless and ignored over 2,000 years ago." Eth turned 2 of her 6 eyes toward the holographic display showing the alien ships. What she saw made no sense to her. The ships were ugly. There was no other word for them. Council vessels were smooth and elegant, designed by the greatest minds over thousands of years to be perfect in every way. These human ships looked like they had been built by children who had never seen a proper spacecraft. They were bulky and covered in strange angles. Metal plates were bolted to their hulls in ways that seemed random. Pipes and machinery stuck out from their surfaces, completely exposed to space. One ship had what appeared to be a giant painting of a human female on its side, wearing very little clothing and winking. "What is that?" Eth asked, pointing at the painted ship. Admiral's crystal body flickered with embarrassment. "We believe it is art, High Arbiter. The humans seem to decorate their warships with images of their females." "Warships, these are warships." "They appear to be, yes, although their design is unlike anything in our databases." Eth studied the ships more closely. One of them was broadcasting music on open channels. Loud, aggressive music with heavy beats and screaming vocals. Another ship was transmitting what appeared to be entertainment programs showing humans hitting each other for sport. "They are insane," said Counselor Thresh, a massive being with clicking mandibles. "No civilized species would build ships like this. No civilized species would announce their presence with noise and chaos." "Perhaps they are simply primitive," suggested Counselor, a floating cloud of gas who communicated through color changes. "They may not know proper protocols." "Primitive or not, they have violated Council space," Eth said. "They must be dealt with." She had dealt with new species before. It was always the same. The Council would appear with overwhelming force. The new species would recognize their own weakness. They would submit, accept their place in the galactic order, and serve the Council faithfully. Those who refused were destroyed. It was simple. It was efficient. It had worked for 12,000 years. "Admiral, move our fleet into standard intimidation formation. I want every weapon trained on those vessels. Show them what they face." The Admiral nodded, his crystal body pulsing with commands that spread instantly to every ship in the fleet. Eth watched as 3,000 warships moved into position, forming a perfect sphere around the tiny human fleet. There was no escape, no direction they could run. They were completely surrounded by enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds. "Open a channel," Eth commanded. A holographic screen appeared before her, and she knew that her image was now being transmitted to every human ship. She straightened her posture, made her voice hard and commanding, and delivered the same ultimatum she had delivered to 100 species before. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered sovereign space of the Galactic Council without permission. This is a crime punishable by death. However, the Council is merciful to those who recognize their place in the natural order." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You will power down all weapon systems immediately. You will surrender all navigation data showing how you reached this location. You will submit your species for categorization and assignment, where we will determine what role your kind will play in serving the Council. You have 1 solar cycle to comply." Another pause, then the threat. "Failure to comply will result in the immediate and complete destruction of your vessels and everyone aboard them. We will then travel to your and decide whether your species deserves to continue existing. The choice is yours. Choose wisely." She ended the transmission and turned to her advisors with satisfaction. "That should do it. That always did it." "High Arbiter," Admiral said slowly, "the human ships are responding. Already good, they understand the situation." "I'm not certain they do, High Arbiter. Their response is unusual." The holographic display changed to show the bridge of the lead human ship. Eth expected to see fear. She expected to see panic, maybe tears, certainly desperate discussion about how to respond. Instead, she saw a human female sitting in a chair, completely relaxed, holding a cup of some steaming liquid. Behind her, other humans were visible. They were laughing. Not nervous laughter, not the laughter of beings trying to hide their fear. They were genuinely, thoroughly amused. One human had fallen out of his chair and was rolling on the floor. Another was wiping tears from her eyes. A third was making a strange gesture at the screen with his hand, extending only his middle finger. "What are they doing?" Counselor Thresh demanded. "I believe they are mocking us," Admiral said, his crystal body dimming with confusion. The human female on the screen took a long sip from her cup, looked directly at the Council transmission with eyes full of amusement, and smiled. Then she spoke, and the translation systems converted her words into perfect Council standard. "Hey, did you guys practice that speech? It was really good, very scary. Love the whole surrounding us with ships thing too, real professional work." She gave them a thumbs up, another human gesture that the translation systems interpreted as approval. "Anyway, we'll get back to you on that whole surrender thing. Might take a while though. This is really, really funny and we need a minute." The transmission ended. Eth stood in silence. In 800 years she had never experienced anything like this. She had faced defiance before. She had faced desperate courage and hopeless resistance, but she had never faced laughter. "High Arbiter," Admiral said quietly, "I recommend we proceed with caution. Something about this situation is wrong." "Wrong? We have 3,000 ships, they have 47. What could possibly be wrong?" But even as she said it, Eth felt something she had not felt in centuries. A cold sensation crawling up her spine. A whisper in her mind telling her that perhaps, for the first time in 12,000 years, the Council had made a terrible mistake. The humans were still laughing. And for some reason, that terrified her more than any weapon ever could. Captain had been in the United Earth Navy for 23 years. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belts. She had led rescue missions into burning stations. She had stared death in the face more times than she could count, and she had never backed down from anything. But right now, she could not stop laughing. The alien transmission had ended 5 minutes ago, and her bridge crew was still trying to pull themselves together. Lieutenant Commander Jackson was bent over his console, shoulders shaking. Navigator had actually fallen out of her chair at one point and was now sitting on the floor wiping tears from her eyes. Even old Sergeant, the most serious man had ever met, was grinning like a fool. "Oh my God," Jackson managed to say between breaths. Did they actually just threaten to destroy us?" "Yes," said, finally getting her laughter under control, "and then categorize us, whatever that means." "I think it means they want to make us slaves," said from the floor. "That's adorable." The bridge of the UES Absolute Unit was not a fancy place. The walls were covered in cables and pipes, screens flickered with data, coffee cups and snack wrappers cluttered every surface. A poster on one wall showed a cat hanging from a branch with the words "hang in there" written below it. Another poster showed a diagram of all the ways the ship could explode. It was messy, it was chaotic, it was human. Took a sip of her coffee, her fifth cup today, and looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet surrounding them. 3,000 ships. Each one was beautiful, elegant, clearly built by a civilization that had mastered space travel long before humans had figured out fire. 47 human ships sat in the middle of them like ugly ducklings surrounded by swans. Okay, said, putting on her captain voice. "Fun's over. Let's actually think about this." "What's to think about, Captain?" asked. "They want us to surrender. We're not going to surrender, so we fight." "We're surrounded by 3,000 ships," Sergeant shrugged his massive shoulders, "so they're trapped in here with us." This caused another round of laughter but raised her hand to quiet them down. She needed to think. The aliens clearly had no idea what they were dealing with. The question was, how did she want to handle this? Humanity had known about the Galactic Council for 60 years now. They had found alien probes, captured alien scouts, and slowly pieced together the truth about the galaxy. The Council ruled everything. They conquered every species they encountered. They were old and powerful and absolutely convinced that they were the masters of creation. They had also, apparently, visited Earth 2,000 years ago, scanned the planet, decided humans were primitive and worthless, and left without making contact. They had written humanity off as irrelevant. Big mistake. In those 2,000 years, humans had done what humans always did. They fought. They invented. They grew. They created weapons that could destroy their own planet and then got scared and created better defenses. They went through world wars and cold wars and a dozen other conflicts that had pushed their technology forward faster than any species in galactic history. The Council thought they were facing primitives in ugly ships. They had no idea that those ugly ships carried technology that would make their finest engineers weep. "What's their weapons assessment?" asked. The navigator pulled herself back into her chair and checked her screens. "Standard plasma cannons, Captain, nuclear missiles, some kind of particle beam weapon on the bigger ships, nothing we haven't seen before, nothing that can touch us. Shields, electromagnetic barriers, decent against physical impacts, would fold like paper against our main guns. Speed. Their fastest ships can do about 0.5 light speed. Captain, we can do that in reverse while eating breakfast." Nodded. It was what she expected. The Council had been at the top for so long that they had stopped improving. Why bother developing better weapons when no one could challenge you? They had grown lazy, comfortable. Humanity had never been comfortable. Humanity had spent its entire existence fighting for survival against everything the universe threw at them. Predators, disease, weather, each other. They had clawed their way out of caves and into the stars with bloody fingernails and stubborn determination. The aliens thought 3,000 ships was overwhelming force. To humans, it was just another Tuesday. "Get me Earth Command," ordered, "priority channel." The communication officer, a young woman named, worked her console. A moment later, a familiar face appeared on the main screen. Admiral James, no relation to Navigator, looked like he had been woken from sleep. His gray hair was messy, and he was holding a cup of coffee. Report. Admiral, we've made first contact with the Galactic Council. They've surrounded us with about 3,000 ships and demanded our surrender. They want us to submit for categorization and assignment. I believe they intend to make humanity a slave species. Admiral took a long sip of his coffee, and their reaction when you said no. Haven't said no yet, sir. Wanted to check with you first. Appreciated. What's your assessment of their military capability? Honestly, sir, it's like being threatened by a bunch of angry puppies. Cute, but not exactly scary. The Admiral smiled. It was not a nice smile. The Defense Council has been waiting for this moment for 60 years, Captain. We always knew the Council would find us eventually. We've prepared. Orders, sir. Do not fire unless fired upon. Do not surrender under any circumstances. Make them understand, Captain, exactly what kind of species they're dealing with. Show them why humanity is not to be trifled with. And if they attack? Admiral's smile grew wider. Then God help them, because we certainly won't. The transmission ended. Turned back to her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting. These were good people, brave people. They had volunteered for the first deep space exploration mission knowing they might never come home. Now they were facing an alien empire that had conquered 1,000,000 worlds. None of them looked scared. If anything, they looked excited. All right, people, said, settling into her captain's chair. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to send these aliens a message. I'm going to explain very politely that we're not going to surrender. And I'm going to invite them to come over here and make us. Captain, Jackson said carefully, are you sure that's wise? We're trying to avoid a war, right? We're trying to avoid a war we don't want to fight, Lieutenant. But if these aliens think they can just show up and demand humanity's submission, grinned. Well, they need to learn something about us. We don't submit. We don't surrender. We don't give up. Ever. She stood and straightened her uniform. Throughout history, every empire that tried to conquer humanity has failed. Every tyrant who tried to enslave us has fallen. Every enemy who underestimated us has regretted it. These aliens are about to learn the same lesson. Raised her hand. Captain, permission to say something. Go ahead. I almost feel sorry for them. They have no idea what they just started. Laughed and picked up her coffee cup. No, they don't. Open a channel. It's time to introduce the Galactic Council to humanity. The real humanity. Not the primitive apes they saw 2,000 years ago. The humanity that crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars and refused to stop until we grabbed them. She faced the screen as the channel opened, showing the alien council watching her with their many eyes. Let's have some fun. High Arbiter Eth had regained her composure. The initial shock of the human response had faded, replaced by cold anger. These primitives dared to laugh at the council. They dared to mock 12,000 years of galactic dominance. She would teach them respect. She would teach them fear. She would grind their silly little ships into dust and then visit there to show them what happened to species who the natural order. The humans are transmitting again, Admiral announced. Put it on screen. The holographic display flickered, and once again Eth saw the human female captain. She was still sitting in that same casual position, still holding that cup of dark liquid, still looking completely unconcerned about the 3,000 weapons pointed at her ship. Hey there, the human said, her tone friendly and warm. Sorry about earlier. That whole laughing thing was probably rude. It's just, you were very serious and dramatic and we weren't expecting that. You find your destruction amusing, Eth demanded. Oh, is that what this is? Destruction. The human looked around at her crew with exaggerated surprise. Did you guys hear that? We're about to be destroyed. One of the humans behind her made a terrified face and wiggled his hands in mock fear. Another pretended to faint. The captain ignored them and turned back to the screen. Look, I'm going to be honest with you, Mrs. What was your name again? High Arbiter something. That's a cool title, by the way, very fancy. I am High Arbiter Eth of the Hegemony, leader of the Galactic Council, ruler of 1,000,000 worlds, commander of the greatest military force in known space. Right, that's a lot. Do you have a business card? Eth did not know what a business card was, but she suspected she was being mocked again. Her 6 eyes narrowed. Human, you do not seem to understand your situation. You are surrounded. You have no hope of escape and no possibility of victory. The only question is whether your species dies today or submits and lives. Okay, so here's the thing. The human captain leaned forward slightly. We've actually been watching you guys for a while, like 60 years or so. We found some of your probes, captured a few of your scouts. Nice ships, by the way, very sleek. Love the design. This was news to Eth. She turned to Admiral, who looked as surprised as she felt. Anyway, the human continued, we've learned a lot about your council. Your history, your technology, your whole deal with conquering species and making them serve you. Very impressive stuff. Very organized. You've got a real system going. We bring order to chaos, Eth said proudly. We bring civilization to the primitive. Sure. And I bet that works great on most species, right? They see your big fleet, they realize they can't win, they give up. Nice and easy. As it should be, the strong rule, the weak serve. This is the natural law of the universe. The human captain smiled. It was a strange smile. There was warmth in it, but also something else. Something that made Eth's secondary heart beat faster. See, that's where we have a problem, because humans, we don't really do the whole giving up thing. It's not in our nature. We're kind of stubborn that way. You would choose death over service. Oh, we choose a lot of things over service. Death is just one option, but here's the fun part. The human stood up from her chair and walked closer to the camera. You're not going to kill us. You're not going to conquer us. You're not going to make us serve anyone. You have 47 ships. We have 3,000. I know, I can count. The human's smile grew wider. You poor bastards, you actually think you have us trapped. Before Eth could respond, the human captain turned to someone off-screen. Hey, show them the thing. A new image appeared next to the human captain. It was a map of the galaxy with thousands of dots marking different locations. Most of the dots were blue. Some were red. And scattered among them were 47 green dots in the exact position of the human fleet. Those blue dots are your council territories, the human explained. The red dots are your military bases, and those green dots are us. She paused. Well, some of us. The map zoomed out. More green dots appeared, hundreds of them, thousands of them. They were everywhere, near council shipyards, outside major population centers, orbiting important worlds. We've been busy, the human said simply. 60 years is a long time. Eth felt ice spreading through her veins. This is impossible. We would have detected. Your sensors are good for things you know about, not so good for things you don't. The human shrugged. We're sneaky. It's a survival thing. What do you want? Now we're getting somewhere. The human clapped her hands together. What we want is simple. We want you to leave us alone. Go back to your council, tell them you found a new species called humans, and tell them we're not interested in being conquered, categorized, or assigned to anything. The council does not negotiate with lesser species. Yeah, I figured you'd say something like that. The human sighed. Okay, let me put this another way. You know how your council has been top dog for 12,000 years, conquering everyone, ruling everything, never meeting anyone who could challenge you. We are the masters of the galaxy. Sure, but have you ever wondered why? Have you ever wondered why no species has ever matched your technology, your military power, your expansion? Eth frowned. Because we are superior, we evolved faster, we developed better. Or, the human said slowly, Maybe it's because the really dangerous species, the ones who could actually challenge you, got wiped out before they reached the stars. By themselves. Through war, through competition, through natural selection that favored aggression and violence. She picked up her coffee cup and took a long sip. Humans, High Arbiter, are the most violent species in our corner of the galaxy. We don't know peace. We don't know surrender. For our entire existence, we've been fighting. Animals, nature, each other. We invented weapons that could destroy our entire planet, and then we invented more because those weren't scary enough. You destroyed yourselves. Almost, many times, but we didn't. We survived. And every time we almost killed ourselves, we got stronger, smarter, more dangerous. The human's eyes met Ed's through the screen. You've never faced anything like us. You've faced species who want to live. We're a species who refuses to die. There's a difference. The council chamber was silent. Every council member was watching. Every advisor was frozen. So here's my offer, the human captain said. Take your fleet and go home. Tell your council that humans are off limits. Don't bother us and we won't bother you. Everyone lives. Everyone wins. And if we refuse? The human smiled again, that warm, terrible smile. Then we'll show you why every species in our part of space went extinct while we survived. We'll show you what humans do when someone tries to put a leash on us. She raised her coffee cup in a toast. Choose wisely, High Arbiter. We've got all day. The transmission ended. Eth stood in silence. Around her, she could hear the worried murmurs of the council. She could see Admiral's crystal body flickering with calculations and concerns. For the first time in her 800 years of life, Eth did not know what to do. The humans were not afraid. They were not desperate. They were not bluffing. They were waiting. And somehow, that was the most terrifying thing of all. Admiral had served the council for 400 years. He had commanded fleets in 37 major battles and countless minor engagements. He had never lost. He had never retreated. He was the greatest military mind the crystalline species had ever produced. And right now, every instinct he had was screaming at him to run. But he could not run. The council was watching. High Arbiter Eth was watching. His reputation, his honor, his entire existence depended on maintaining the image of council superiority. High Arbiter, he said carefully, I recommend we test the humans. A single warning shot, nothing that would cause real damage, just enough to show them we are serious. Eth nodded slowly. Do it. Show them that words mean nothing against firepower. Gave the order. The destroyer Swift Justice, one of his finest vessels, moved forward from the formation. Its main cannon, a plasma weapon capable of melting through a kilometer of solid rock, charged with a deep humming sound that every species in the galaxy had learned to fear. The weapon fired. A beam of superheated plasma crossed the distance between the Swift Justice and the lead human ship in less than a second. It struck the vessel dead center, right where the engines met the main hull. It was a perfect shot, a killing shot. The beam splashed against the human ship's hull like water against a window. Nothing happened. No explosion, no damage, no reaction at all. The human ship just sat there, completely untouched, as if the most powerful weapon in the council fleet had never fired. Report, demanded, his crystal body flashing with alarm. Direct hit confirmed, Admiral. Full power, no effect. That's impossible. Increase power, fire again. The Swift Justice fired again, and again, and again. 5 shots, each one powerful enough to destroy a small moon, each one hitting the human ship perfectly. The human ship didn't even bother to move. Admiral, one of his officers said quietly, the human ship is transmitting. A message appeared on every tactical display in the council fleet. 2 words in perfect council standard. Tickles our turn. Felt his crystal heart freeze. All ships defensive formation. Raise all shields, prepare for. He never finished the sentence. The human ships moved. No, moved was the wrong word. Moving implied speed, direction, travel through space. The human ships didn't move. They simply stopped being in one location and started being in another location. One moment, all 47 human vessels were clustered together in the center of the Council formation. The next moment, they were everywhere. Each human ship had positioned itself directly beside a Council flagship, a command vessel, or a critical support ship. They had bypassed every defensive line, every sensor grid, every weapon array. They had crossed distances that should have taken minutes in the blink of an eye. The Council fleet was now completely compromised. If the humans opened fire, they could destroy every important ship in the formation before anyone could react. The battle would be over in seconds. But the humans did not fire. Instead, something even stranger happened. Every crew member on every Council ship received a personal transmission, not a broadcast, a direct message addressed to them specifically, translated perfectly into their native language. "Hey there, just wanted to introduce ourselves. We're humans, nice to meet you." Along with the message came an image. It showed a small furry creature with 4 legs, floppy ears, and a tongue hanging out of its mouth. It appeared to be smiling. Stared at the image in confusion. What is this? Another message arrived. Another image. This one showed a different creature, smaller, with pointed ears and whiskers. It was curled up in a ball, apparently sleeping. "That's a cat. They're pretty cool. They pretend they don't like you, but they actually do." More images flooded the Council networks. Creatures of every size and shape, all of them apparently from the human. Dogs wearing tiny hats. Cats sitting in boxes. Something called a hamster running in a wheel. A large creature called an elephant spraying water from its nose. Throughout the Council fleet, confusion reigned. Officers who had been preparing for battle were now staring at pictures of baby animals. Warriors who had served for centuries were asking each other what a puppy was and why it was wearing a sweater. On the bridge of the Eternal Mandate, High Arbiter Eth watched in stunned silence as her entire fleet received a flood of cute animal pictures. "Admiral," she said slowly, "what is happening?" I do not know, High Arbiter. They have us surrounded. They could destroy us at any moment, but instead they are sending us images of small creatures. Is this some kind of psychological weapon?" "Unknown, but," hesitated. "High Arbiter, several of my officers are requesting permission to save the images to their personal files." One of Eth's aides, a young who had been silent throughout the confrontation, spoke up. "High Arbiter, look at this one. It is a creature called a corgi. Its legs are very short, but it seems happy." Eth looked at the image. The creature did indeed have very short legs, and it did indeed seem happy. She forced herself to focus. This was a distraction. It had to be. The humans were playing some kind of game, trying to confuse them, trying to. A new message appeared on her personal display. "Hi, I'm Captain. Mind if I come over for a chat? I brought coffee." Before Eth could respond, there was a flash of light on the bridge. When it faded, the human captain was standing there, in the middle of the Council chamber, holding 2 cups of that dark liquid. Guards raised their weapons. Officers shouted in alarm. Admiral's crystal body flared with defensive energy. The human just smiled and held out one of the cups. "Relax, everyone, I come in peace, seriously." She looked around the chamber with obvious curiosity. "Nice place you've got here, very dramatic, I like the lighting." "How did you get on the ship?" Eth demanded. "Teleportation, it's a human thing. We're good at going places we're not supposed to be." The captain shrugged. "Look, I could explain the whole technology thing, but it would take forever and you probably wouldn't believe me anyway. The short version is, we're more advanced than you, a lot more advanced, like it's not even close." "Impossible, we have ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, yes, I know, and in that time you've improved your technology by maybe, what, 10%? 15. You got comfortable, you stopped pushing. You had no competition, so you had no reason to get better. The human walked over to one of the tactical displays and studied it casually. Humans have been fighting for survival since we climbed down from the trees. Every generation, we face new threats. Every generation, we adapt, we improve, we overcome. In the last 200 years alone, we've gone from riding horses to building ships that can cross the galaxy in hours. She turned back to Eth. Do you understand what that means? We're not just catching up to you. We passed you decades ago. We kept it secret because we weren't sure how you'd react. We wanted to observe, to learn, to understand what we were dealing with. And now we're introducing ourselves. The human captain smiled. And we're making a point. We could destroy your fleet. We could conquer your council. We could do to you exactly what you've done to 100 other species. She offered the coffee cup again. But we're not going to, because that's not who we want to be. We've spent our entire history fighting. We're tired of it. We're ready to try something different. Eth stared at the human. This small, fragile-looking creature from an insignificant world had just demonstrated technology that made the council look like children playing with toys. She could do anything she wanted. The entire galaxy was within her reach. And she was offering coffee. What do you want? Eth asked. Friends, the human said simply. We want friends. Is that so hard to believe? For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, Eth reached out and took the cup. 3 days had passed since Captain had teleported onto the council flagship. 3 days of negotiations, discussions, and the most confusing diplomatic situation the Galactic Council had ever faced. The council fleet had not moved. The human fleet had not moved. But the weapons were powered down now, and something strange was happening throughout both groups of ships. Cultural exchange. It had started when a curious human engineer asked if he could look at a council engine. This had led to a council engineer asking to see a human engine. Within hours, teams of engineers from both sides were wandering around each other's ships, pointing at things and asking questions. The humans were fascinated by council art and music. The council species were fascinated by human food. Someone had introduced the crystallines to pizza, and now they were demanding to know how to make it. They had discovered human comedy shows and could not stop watching them. And everywhere on every ship, people were sharing pictures of pets. High Arbiter Eth sat in a private meeting room on the Eternal Mandate, across from Captain. The human had visited several times now, always bringing that strange dark drink called coffee. Eth had tried it. It was bitter and unpleasant. She was already addicted. I still do not understand, Eth said, wrapping her long fingers around the warm cup. You have the power to rule the galaxy. Why don't you use it? Leaned back in her chair, looking thoughtful. Let me tell you about human history. It won't take long, because most of it is the same story repeated over and over. War. War, so much war. We fought over land. We fought over resources. We fought over ideas. We fought over religion. We fought over things we can't even remember anymore. For thousands of years, we killed each other in bigger and more creative ways. This seems inefficient. Incredibly inefficient, also incredibly painful. We lost so many people, so many civilizations rose and fell, so many chances to do better wasted, sighed. But we also learned. Every war taught us something. Every conflict pushed us forward. Your technology came from war. Most of it. Our fastest transportation was invented to carry soldiers. Our communications were invented to coordinate armies. Even medicine got better because we kept finding new ways to hurt each other and had to find new ways to heal. Eth nodded slowly. This explained much about the humans. Their ugly, practical ships that looked like they were built for function over form. Their casual attitude toward violence. Their strange combination of warmth and danger. You said something during our first conversation, Eth remembered. You said humans are a species who refuses to die. What did you mean? Smiled. We've faced extinction so many times. Ice ages, plagues, asteroids. We even came close to destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons. Every time we should have died. Every time we found a way to survive. Through stubbornness. Partly, but also through cooperation. See, here's the thing about humans that most species don't understand. We're violent, yes. We fight constantly, but we also love. We form bonds. We build families and communities and nations. And when something threatens all of us, we come together. You fight each other, but you also fight for each other. Exactly, leaned forward. When we finally got to space and realized we weren't alone in the universe, something changed. All those old conflicts, all those old hatreds, they started to seem less important. We realized we were all humans. We were all in this together. You united against a common threat. We united for a common purpose. For the first time in history, we stopped seeing each other as enemies and started seeing each other as family. Eyes grew distant. It wasn't easy. It took generations. We still argue, we still disagree, but we don't kill each other anymore, not over the things we used to. Eth was quiet for a long moment, processing this. The Council had united the galaxy through force. They had conquered species and made them obey. It worked, but it required constant military presence, constant threat, constant fear. The humans had done something different. They had united themselves through choice, through shared identity, through recognizing that their differences were less important than what they had in common. When you saw our ultimatum, Eth said slowly, when we demanded your surrender, you laughed. We did. Because you knew you were stronger than us. No, shook her head. We laughed because you were trying to use fear to control us, and we've already been through the worst fear can offer. We've faced our own destruction 100 times. We've stared into the void, and the void blinked first. She reached across the table and, to Eth's surprise, took her hand. You want to know the real reason we didn't destroy your fleet? The real reason we're sitting here drinking coffee instead of fighting a war? Yes. Because we're tired. His voice was soft now. Humanity is tired of fighting. We've spent our entire existence in conflict. Every generation has known war. Every family has lost someone. We're good at destruction. We're the best at destruction. But we don't want to be that anymore. What do you want to be? Something better, the human smiled. We want to explore the galaxy not as conquerors but as travelers. We want to meet new species not as enemies but as friends. We want to share our knowledge, our culture, our really excellent food with anyone who wants to try it. And your weapons, your technology. Still there, still ready. If someone threatens us or the people we care about, we'll defend ourselves. We're not stupid, but we'd rather throw a party than throw a punch. Eth looked down at their joined hands. Hers was blue with 6 fingers. The human's was pink with 5. Different species from different worlds, separated by millions of years of evolution. And yet here they were, sharing coffee, sharing stories, trying to understand each other. The Council will not easily accept this, Eth said. Many of our members have ruled through fear for thousands of years. They will not want to change. Then we'll change their minds. We'll show them there's a better way. We'll be so friendly and so fun to be around that they'll forget why they were scared of us in the first place. You think friendship is stronger than fear? I know it is. Fear makes people obey. Friendship makes people want to stay. Squeezed her hand gently. Give us a chance, High Arbiter. Let us show you what humanity can do when we're building instead of breaking. Eth thought about it. She thought about 12,000 years of council rule, 12,000 years of conquest and submission and fear. She thought about the humans, these strange, violent, warm, terrifying, wonderful creatures who could destroy the galaxy but would rather share pictures of small animals. She thought about the corgi with the short legs that seemed so happy. There will be resistance, she said finally. There will be those who see you as a threat no matter what you do. There will be conflicts and misunderstandings and perhaps even violence. Probably agreed. You are prepared for this. We've been dealing with conflicts and misunderstandings for our entire existence. It's kind of our specialty. The human grinned. Besides, we've learned something important. You can't force people to like you, but you can give them reasons to try. Eth made her decision. She stood and extended her hand in the human greeting she had learned. Very well, Captain. The Galactic Council agrees to peaceful relations with humanity. We will try things your way. The human stood and took her hand, shaking it firmly. Call me and welcome to the neighborhood. As they shook hands, Eth felt something she had not felt in centuries, something light and warm and strange. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hoping. Outside the meeting room, beyond the walls of the flagship, the two fleets hung in space. Council ships and human ships side by side. No weapons raised, no threats made. Just two groups of beings from different corners of the galaxy, waiting to see what would happen next. And on every ship, people were still sharing pictures of pets, still trying each other's food, still laughing at jokes they didn't quite understand but wanted to learn. It was messy, it was chaotic, it was completely unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was human. And somehow that made it perfect.